Excited. Let's see if I got this set up right. Pretty excited about this one. Maybe you could say breaking news. Maybe. I mean, it's no surprise people. It's no surprise people know that I've been big on Buffalo National River. That I've been big on Arkansas. That I've been big on Steel Creek Campground. So I guess, but this is just I had some breakthroughs yesterday. Big shout out to the Koi Wonder, who really. This is why the Discord. This is why information sharing is so great. At least in my opinion. Some people don't like it, but it really just got me thinking down a train that led to one led to me being up till like 1:30 at night, way too late. But it led to a pretty cool map and a pretty cool. I'm not gonna say new solve, a polishing of the solve, because I got to Steel Creek Campground pretty quickly, but couldn't really go much from there. So, all right, if you have the picture in front of you, that's gonna help. If you don't have the picture in front of you, you can get it. It's in both Discords in the Pokemon channel. I posted it last night. It's on TikTok. I'll probably do a Reddit post later after I post this, but you're gonna want to have that picture because I reference 0 through 12 and 13. So that's why I did a live instead of a recording, because if someone pops in, they don't know what picture I'm talking about. Again, it's in the Pokemon channel in both Discord, Calazars and Mysterious Writings. So that's the picture I'm going to be referring to. And we're doing it this way because I'm still not technologically proficient enough, savvy enough to be able to run the YouTube studio and show stuff and talk at the same time. We tried that yesterday. In my opinion, it was a disaster. So I'm going to do some more offline practice until I get better at it, and then we'll come back and try to do it again. But the picture is a Google Earth satellite image of the Steel Creek Campground area and about roughly 3 miles outside of it. I think the picture is like 4 or 5. And I put numbers 1 through 13 all along the map as we're going the story. So I'll lead with the most exciting first, in case that's all you hear or care about. The most exciting is, in my opinion, I've got a narrowed down final search area, which would be number 13 on the map. And you just want to draw a triangle or a cone, from the red arrow going toward 13 and spreading out. That would be where I would grid search. Again, I don't have any plans to go to Arkansas yet, but now with this information, Arkansas is moving up on top of my list, better than Vermont. So tentatively, I'm putting off Vermont till a couple, maybe a month or two down the road, and Arkansas is my number 1 go-to. Trying to get out there. Oh, it's a little bit of a farther drive. Maybe middle of January. I don't know. I got a lot of stuff in January. Kentucky and Vermont were easier drives. They were about 8 hours away. I could swing that in a 3-day weekend. But Arkansas, it's just a little bit further down. Just makes logistics tough. But we'll see. All right, so getting to the good stuff. And I'll go through the numbers. I'll go through why I believe. And then I do have some counterpoints. So we'll hit those counterpoints at the end, because no one likes counterpoints. All right, so 0 is Steel Creek Campground. All right. How I got there was looking at route planning from Statesville to Houston using Google first. But I do remember growing up, my father route planning with I think it's put out by insurance companies, like a AAA, big, thick map book. I think AAA had one. You can get them at a lot of gas stations. It would have like all the states on there. And I do remember driving from Baltimore to Texas, Dallas specifically, and I remember my dad would, like, a couple days before, would like draw with a highlighter and pen, like on a physical map. This was before everybody had MapQuest, before everybody had GPS. That's the kind of route planning I'm assuming his father did growing up in the story. Again, I'm taking this story as literal, and so I'm taking the story as literal. So I do remember, again, my dad doing that. I'm thinking that his dad did that. Even after making that trip like a dozen times growing up, even though my father pretty much had the major highways memorized, he no, don't worry, he still would do a route planning. So I'm guessing that that's how JCB's father, again, if you're taking this story literal, even though they made that trip several years in a row, he was still route planned with an actual map. And so it's important to no, you're good, Navaya. So it's good to have I lost my train of thought. And yeah, yeah. See, again, yeah. That's actually great, having a physical map. And I do think that that's how he grew up seeing that. I think he saw his dad route planning. I think so. The main point with this is, with the route planning, you're going to go through the major interstates, and you're going to go through. Maybe I do, Dallas. You're going to go through the highway. So I think what I'm trying to say is, Statesville, North Carolina to Houston. I think he planned the route planning along. And some people have said, oh, he hit it on the way to Houston, not the way back. Well, I mean, if it's a circular path, it doesn't really. You almost got me with that one, Nikolai. Almost. It doesn't really matter if the path is circular if you went to Ozarks on the way to or the way back, because it's circular. So I mean, we're arguing over semantics here. It just mainly argues over. Do you want to get to your destination first and then have fun on the way back, or are you slowly going to your destination and on the way back? I mean, it really doesn't matter. But either way, Steel Creek Campground is where I got there. You can watch the other video where I talk about why did he go that far north into the Ozarks, because no matter if you're using GPS, if you're doing it by hand, however you're planning your routes to drive from however you're planning to drive your route from Statesville, North Carolina to Houston, you don't really have to go that far north. It's just, if you go down south, it's I-10 mainly down south. I've traveled I-10 a lot. A lot of people have traveled I-10 a lot. There's not a lot of national parks, especially the ones that look like what he's describing along I-10. It's, once you go out of Louisiana, I mean, you're elevated, and it's like over swamps for like, I don't know, like 100 miles or something like that. So on your way back, you'd probably go the same route if you were trying to go for efficiency. And even if you had a young family, if you had a kid and you were trying to stop at some ways along the way, I mean, there's plenty of national parks that you wouldn't have to go that far north. The only reason you would go far north, which was the main point of my other video, the only reason you would go that far north was you either went to Dallas after Houston, which you didn't mention, but maybe you went to Dallas, and now you're starting back from further north, or the Ozarks is the goal, similar to New Orleans worked out because New Orleans was along the path, so that worked out. But if he told his family, hey, we're going to go to Houston for either business, or he's preaching, or he's talking to whoever, because the dad was a traveling, I don't know the dad was a traveling pastor. We do know the dad was a pastor at some point. And he mentions in the Peter Cottontail confirmation bias, he mentions that, experiencing the African-American Baptist church and how that was different. So I'm just kind of putting it together that he's went to a few different churches, whether the dad was preaching at a few different ones or visiting. That's where I'm getting that from. So anyways, so you either go to Dallas or the Ozarks is the point, which if the Ozarks is the point, if you're saying, okay, hey, we're going to go to Houston, take care of whatever we need to take care of. On the way back, we might make one or two stops. Ozarks is going to be one of them. Then you would go in, because the language earlier on talks about going through New Orleans and past the Ozarks. So a lot of people were saying, well, if it's past the Ozarks, past is a whole lot different from through, so you don't even need to go into the Ozarks. For me, I'm taking the viewpoint that he goes into the Ozarks, because a lot of the, I'm not an expert on Texas. I'm not an expert on Louisiana. Grew up in Texas, lived in Texas for about 5 years. Texas is a huge state. Maybe there are national parks that really match up to the way he's describing it in the story, and maybe the story is more figurative than literal. But the Ozarks matches up pretty well. And in the altered image, if you show that to a lot of park rangers or people along the way, they can say like 5 or 6 spots, oh, this is along the Buffalo National River. It just matches up too well. So, long story short, this is how I got to point 0, Steel Creek Campground. Searched along the Buffalo National River, searched along Ozarks, looked for places with a large clearing, looked for places that went back 50, 60 years, looked across for places that allowed campers, which some people said brought to my attention Steel Creek Campground currently does not allow campers. I saw horse trailers and I saw horses, but I guess camper is a different class. It doesn't really matter what they allow now, it's what they allowed then. All right, all that was point zero, long introduction. I do have notes, so try to stick to it this time. All right, next, it's not a numbered point, but this was by a Discord member. It wasn't my idea, but I like it. So they met Froggy in a jazz bar, Jasper. Is that a stretch? A little bit of a stretch. I've definitely heard longer stretches, but I'm not using that as a clue. I just think it's interesting. Met him in a jazz bar. Jasper is one of the closest towns to this area. All right, so moving on. It's important to note numbers 1 and 2. He's still driving. He hasn't parked his car. So these points that I'm going to show to you, point number 1 and point number 2, they're not. He hasn't started his hike yet. This is just. I believe the picture is a map, is a verbal map. So he wants you to. He's leading us to where the hike starts. All right. So he talks about animal training. All right. Number 1 on the map is it's a horse camp. And they don't do long-term boarding, but there are trainers there that will offer their animal training services. So, stretch, maybe. Number 2, a lot of people have talked about pet stores, about the flies. So I looked for pet stores in the area. There's not really any. You'd have to go to the nearest town, which is pretty far away. People talked about jar of flies is cicadas. Some people call it that. Maybe. So there is a Lost Valley Canoe and General Store. Lost Valley Canoe General Store. It's been in the area for a long time, which is what we wanted because maybe he has memories of. This is one of the areas, if you're going to camp at Steel Creek Campground or the other one that's more north, this is one of the areas that, I like eggs. Eggs are great. This is one of the areas that that you would stop at, all right? And they do offer some bait. They do offer, when I called the girl, I asked if they sold jars of flies. I think she thought it was a prank caller, which is fair. If someone calls you out of the blue asking, hey, do you sell jars of flies? You might think you're being set up, like Nikolai, right, with his girlfriend. But I don't know. So, but she does sell, she said we sell bait, we sell other like little novelty trinkets. Hey, I think if somebody stops by that Lost Valley Canoe General Store, maybe they have something more related, but I marked that down as 2. So number 3 is where he actually parks the car. For a long time, for number 3, I was starting my hike at Steel Creek Campground, and really it was the members of Discord challenging me for saying that, why does he have to park his car at the campground? The only significance of the Steel Creek Campground was to get us looking in that area. And it was, he never says that he stopped at the exact place he stayed, and that's where he started his hike. He said he hit it in the area of an area he used to stop with fond memories, all right? So this is what really opened up my mind, saying that the trail doesn't have to start at Steel Creek Campground, which is where I spent the last 2 weeks looking. Now, I'm starting the trail at Center Point Trail. So number 3 is where he parks the car. Number 4, this is again, man, the Koi Wonder, which is why I shouted him out, which is saying if I actually find the box, I'm going to give him something because he was like on point with a lot of these. Number 4 is Fire Tower Road, which if you remember, Froki is talking to JCB in the story. JCB is saying, it's sweltering, which I think I think there's some wordplay in there I haven't figured out. Sweltering, the high summer, I think there's something in there I haven't figured it out. But Froki's like, well, no, there won't be any Charizards. Why wouldn't there be any Charizards? I mean, they say there won't be any Musbostiffs, and they point to a sign. But he says there won't be any Charizards, but why? Well, because you're on Fire Tower Road. I mean, that just that was a light bulb. I don't even think that's a major stretch either, so I wrote that down. That's number 4. So you're going off of Fire Tower Road. Parking your car at number 5, that's where you're going to start. Again, it's important to note he hasn't started moving yet. So for me, if JCB in the story hasn't specifically mentioned he started moving yet, anything he describes is what's in the area. And by area, I mean us as hunters looking on a map, because he talks about map. I don't think I don't think it's viewpoint. Arcade Fire in the Sky. Huh. Okay, that's going Dallas. Might have to check that out. But again, number 5, he talks about there's no buffalo or whatever, and I had been stuck on a long time of, Buffalo National River. It's a play on words, it's tongue in cheek. Oh, we're on the Buffalo National River, but there's no actual buffalo. And JCB goes, oh, I did my research. Well, here's another confirmation of that, or possible confirmation. Number 5, there's a Buffalo Resort. And on the webpage, on Google Images, if you look at Buffalo Resort, and that's number 5, that's on Fire Tower Road, it's really close by. There's a picture of a buffalo right on the front. All right, so that's like 3 things for me. You got Buffalo Resort right there. There's a picture of a buffalo. It's a name. It's the picture. You're on Buffalo National River. All these things about buffalo. And Froki tells you, hey, there's no actual buffalo here, despite all the names. And JCB's like, oh, yeah, I know. I did some research. All right, that's another one. So now the first movement, which on the map I marked it in green. All right, now it's important to know because JCB has indicated, hey, we're starting to move along the trail. Which trail? Center Point Trail. All right, heading, no. It's not Center Point Trail. It's the Center Point Trailhead, but it goes south. And you have to really zoom in on Google Maps because, or on Apple Maps, because the trail is really faint. All right, so it's, hey, what's up, Fuzzy? Good to see you. So you're going south, heading towards Steel Creek. All right, that's the green movement on the map. It's important to note out that while most of the Pokemon he shouts out, he mentions raccoons. All right, and it's the 3, 2, 7, which are the numbers, which I think anytime the numbers are in play is significant. Maybe I'm looking too hard. But 327 is the new area code for Arkansas. Now, some people say, well, it was only decided in the last year. So if he's working on this book for 5 years, he would have already storyboarded. Most of the last year would have been proofreading, editing. I don't know. Maybe he got word when he was hunting down there, hiking down there, or looking for clues to put in. Maybe they announced the 327 area code sooner. I don't know. It's not. I didn't assign a number to it. It's not one of my top clues. It's a low percentage. But when you have 20 or 30 things pointing to an area, it kind of adds up. It makes me feel better versus like 10. All right. So we're still in the first movement. We're still on green. Moving down, there's no really big. This is what throws me off a little bit. There's no really big indicator between the first movement and the second movement. We start moving, talks about the raccoons, and now you're still moving again. I marked this blue on the map. And I didn't really know which direction because there's so many trails. This area has a lot of trails, which I think is good for a puzzle creator. But he talks about what he sees. So if you're looking at the second movement, which is blue on the map, we get to B Bluff, which is number 6. And some people said, well, B Bluff, it's across the river, and he doesn't mention river crossing, which is interesting note. He doesn't mention any kind of river crossing. I did not know that, 327. I'm actually, Steven, going to write that down. Something to look into later. 327 is Spinda. So what he sees, which I think is very important to notice that what he sees, again, he's talking to us as the reader and as the puzzle hunter, and we're looking at a map. We're not boots on the ground yet because he advises you don't go boots on the ground until you have a more precise area. So if he's telling us a story, why would he tell us boots on the ground sites and visual indicators when he tells us not to go? He's contradicting himself, which he might do, all right? That's one way to look at it, but I'm trying to look at it surface area. I'm trying to believe him, trying to take it literally. So he's talking to us as a reader, as a puzzle hunter, and he's telling us what he sees because we're looking at a map. So we're looking at a map. So B Bluff is, on my finger map, it's like this far apart. In real life, it's maybe a quarter of a mile, but it's really big, and it should be seen from a while. So B Bluff is right across the river. I think that's a pretty good visual indicator. Now we start our third movement, all right, which is in orange. In our third movement, here's how I got to the direction of where we're going, because he says increasingly hemmed in. So this one threw a lot of people, threw me for a while. I mean, hemmed in. He uses the words hemmed in. There's hemmed in trail. It's got to be on hemmed in trail, hemmed in hollow trail. Everybody went there. Apparently, again, I haven't been boots on the ground yet. Apparently, that's not like an easy hike. All right. Oh, JCB so cruel. It's making us go up and down, whatever. Looking at it again, I'm thinking, how can I rationalize this in my head? Because most of my clues, they don't even go to hemmed in hollow. Well, he says the trail became increasingly hemmed in, which is interesting to note. Increasingly could be closer or headed to. So I started taking that when I did my route planning for trying to follow in his footsteps of the story, that he went toward Hemmed In Hollow. He didn't go up Hemmed In Hollow, increasingly hemmed in the path. So now I got my orange. We're on the third movement. Hemmed In Hollow goes, you start heading, now you cross the river and you start heading toward Hemmed In Hollow. All right. But at some point you turn. When do you turn? Where do you turn? I worked backwards from this. This is where we get to the rock. All right. This should be its whole chapter on its own. I was so happy yesterday. Again, little coy wonder, just being an awesome dude, sharing information. If you've seen a picture of this rock, I made the analogy yesterday that I've seen a lot of pictures of users saying, "Oh, I found the rock in the middle of it all. This is the rock he sat down." I've seen like probably about 20 pictures that in my head were like, it could be. When I saw this picture yesterday, there was like no doubt. I'm 100% confirmation bias. This is the rock. I mean, it's huge. It's like 6 feet across. It stands up like 3 feet. There's pictures all over. If you go to Street View, you can actually hike that trail virtually. And the picture I saw was like 2 horses, because there's horse trails, which is why they don't allow dogs, because you don't want dogs and horses on the same trail. It's just a perfect rock. And JCB talks about, oh, I sat down on the rock, and if you read where he's pulling out stuff out of his box and showing the froggies and doing this and doing that, they're all on that rock. And it's a table. It's a massive rock. He's not sitting on like a small rock. And then it'd just be, anyways, I'm super into the rock. So in my head, I'm like, man, but the rock's way up here. The rock's on Center Point Trail in the middle of it all. The rock's over here. My last point from him is B Bluff down here. And then he talks about Hemmed In Hollow. So, yeah, Mr. Dallas. Yeah, I did. Shout out to Mr. Dallas. All right. Street View is awesome. And I've been using Street View ever since, because that hike is, people have been taking pictures all up and down that hike, and you can actually virtual hike it. So for anyone who can't go boots on the ground yet, but you want to get an idea of what it looks like, Google Street View is your friend. Shout out to Mr. Dallas, 1992. Got the full name in there. Yeah, so anyway, so I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, the rock is right there. It's like more than halfway through the story. I can't justify starting at Center Point Trail and then running to the rock, because it's too soon in the story. The rock needs to be more than halfway or more to the end of the story. But how do I get there? Well, it's luckily that in his movements, he talks about reverse and circle. That kind of threw me a hint that he didn't use a straight line. For us as hunters, once we know where the box is, we don't have to follow his path. I'm building a description of his path so we know where the end point is. And I think that's his story along with us. That's why he's being coy, he's being tricky. Oh, I went this way. Oh no, I went back this way. Then I went over here. If you're building a puzzle with a story, most of his other puzzles have different layers, right? The poem, different layers. Word search, different layers. The map, AT map, different layers. So why would the story just be, okay, here's the story, find the landmarks in the story, get to the end? No, it's going to be layers again, which is the direction of travel. That's the theory I'm working on right now. It makes sense. I like it. It kept me up till like 1:30 last night. So that's how I got the path that you start at Center Point Trail, you go down, then you go to Steel Creek. Now you're getting, you see the B Bluff, you see everything he sees. Now you're getting increasingly hemmed in. You're going toward Hemmed In Hollow, but you don't go there. The next step is the rock, so you're circling back to the rock. Oh, you missed it. I talked about it for like 10 minutes in the beginning. At the very end, I'll circle back. Man goes broke. Because if I do now, I'm gonna lose my track. Yeah. So okay. So now we're at number 8. If you look at the map, it's number 8. We're at the trail. We're at the rock. And a lot of people said, well, from the rock, he says he saw the mudkip and the swampert. All right. Again, remember what we covered earlier on, that when he's saying what he sees in person in the story, that's not for us to see on boots on the ground, because boots on the ground for us is the last step. So when he says he sees something, he's telling us, look on the map and can you see it? And from the rock in the middle, there's actually 2 ponds. And and they're hard to see through Google Street View, but I zoomed in and found a couple of campers on Instagram who actually went out there, and depending on what time of year you go, I guess, I did see a couple pictures where those little ponds were kind of swampy. So if you're on Apple Maps, go to the big rock in the middle of it all, which is about half a mile in from Center Point Trail, and you'll see it. And or if you're looking at the map that I posted, it's number 8. If you go to that spot, number 8, zoom in on Apple Maps or your satellite view, whatever, you'll see 2 ponds. All right, that's where the swampert. I think that's a good indicator because that's how he tells us if we found the right rock. If the rock you're at can't see a swampert and a mudkip, which to me he differentiates pond swamp animals from river animals, because later he talks about minnows and sea king. All right, those are more moving water, I guess, more river animals. Okay, so a lot on number 8. I'm excited. You see number 9. Now we get to his 4th movement, which I believe is purple. Yeah, purple. Reverse course. All right, so that's a good thing. Reverse course. So now that brings us back down, because I'm not just reversing direction. I'm trying to reverse his actual course that he followed. So that's why you have to know where he went from, because you're reversing course. If you just went backwards, you'd say we turned around. But reversing course to me indicates you reverse the path that you just came. So now we go back down along, and that matches up. You'd be number 10 and 11 on the map. You're going by, I think there's a couple of trails that go by. One of them is like a goat bluff or something, which the trail lungs the bottom of a high bluff. So if there is a high bluff and a tree on top, I mean, that's a eagle that's way high up. People have seen birds' nests. They're not animal experts, so they can't report back to me if they're eagles or not. They could be hawks, but they're birds' nests up there. People have seen eagles in the area. I've seen those. So now this brings us to the last bit, the most exciting bit, because he reverses course. Now he's at 10 and 11. Goat Bluff, the eagle, sees the Sea King. You've got the river right there. It looks like on the map, it's like the Mickey Mouse ears. It's the little loop. And this is the big finale, all right? He meets the golem, rock pile, a lot of rocks around there. Then the golem, they say, they circled back. Let me actually pull the text out so I can read the exact, because this is key. Because we've done all this work to kind of map out his rough path, but that does us absolutely no good if we can't figure out where he ended. All right, page 219. The Greninja also introduced me to a wise golem who happened to have a great idea about where we could hide our treasure. We circled back. 3 words. That's 1 sentence. We circled back. I need to look and see if that's the shortest sentence he wrote in his whole book. I mean, it's hard to have a 2-word sentence. 3 words is really tiny. We circled back. Okay. So we followed his path. We've gotten to where we meet the golem. Okay. Now we circled back. Circled back to what? Did he circle back to where he parked? Where he started? Did he circle back to the last time they stopped? Did he circle back to another landmark he mentioned? I don't know. Here's how I decided what circle back meant. I kept reading, and after he breaks up with the animals and hides the treasure, he talks about, I should have left the book open, but he talks about he went back. Okay. I shook hands with the Greninja and the Golem, then saying a final goodbye to all my friends. We're at the top of page 220. After saying a goodbye to all my friends, I started the walk back towards where we'd begun our day. So that's what I'm taking is that circle back couldn't mean circling back to where they all started the hike together. Because if he did, then he'd be right where he started from. So I'm taking circle back as in a new direction. And what helped me out was, again, Street View. Someone posted, and this is the number 13 marker on the map. Someone posted a picture of a fire pit. I really believe it's from growing up as hiker. We got lost on trail, circle back to find the trailhead. And that could be a term. I mean, we know he's kind of grew up an outdoor kid, talked about playing in the rivers. So circle back could be a trailhead. It could be the trailhead he started. It could be the nearest trailhead. I mean, we really don't know until we find a box. But I took it circle back as He's drawing a literal circle on the map because he's speaking to us as speaking to us as hikers, speaking to us as looking on the map. And that's how I got to point 13. But point 13 is a cone. You just have the general vector, general direction, and then search in that area. The point 13 is an actual picture on Google Street View that somebody built. Someone took a picture of a campfire ring. So that's, and then at the very end, he walks back alone by himself. The animals disappear. Which I guess another thing is maybe Froki lived in that area, because why wouldn't he give Froki a ride back? He met Froki in a jazz bar, and then he's just leaving him in the woods. So maybe this is from, I don't know, that's another rabbit trail. The only other bit before I circle back to the beginning, before I circle back and help out Man Goes Broke, the only other bit I have is crossing the road. So to me, there's a lot of crossings in here, and I couldn't find anything indicating the text of a cross until I had this thought, and this is unique to me. If anybody else had it, they haven't shared it. But the game Frogger, when you cross the street, a lot of times the frog dies. So in my head, I was like, okay, what if when Frog leaves him is an indicator that it was a dangerous crossing? And there is a road, when you start out, the green movement goes to the orange movement. You do cross one of the Steel Creek campground roads, and there's no other roads if you follow the path that I'm prescribing or the path that I'm saying. You don't cross any other roads. So that would be the only other time that Froki leaves him, was he left him because he crossed the road. That's a stretch, I'll admit. That's a stretch. I'm not putting a number by that. And so he wrote this book for the hymn. Yeah, and that's what Dallas, that's what really has got my mind in this kind of view, that he's speaking to us as he knows we have the book in our living room analyzing it. And so when he's speaking to us, he's helping us draw a map to get there. And when he says, I see something, he doesn't want us to go boots on the ground yet. He doesn't want you to get the book, run to the woods, and then try to look for what he sees. He wants us to step back, build a solve, analyze, look at a map. All right, so that's how I'm taking when he says what he sees, he's telling us look at a map and do you see this near? What's near? I don't know. All right, but that's how I'm taking that. I think that's all the exciting stuff I have for now. For Man Goes Broke, starting how I got to Arkansas was, need a drink. I'm glad my throat is better. I can drink iced drinks again. I like my iced coffee. So we start at, anybody, there's not going to be any new information. So anybody who's watching the solve, most of the exciting stuff is done. This is just going to be a recap. All right, so Pokemon Box talks about a childhood trip from Statesville, North Carolina to Houston. All right, and they're both kind of at the southern of the U.S. And so I was proposing that back in the day when he would have been driving that or riding it with his dad driving, there was no GPS, there was no MapQuest, whatever. It's all maps, all right? The big maps you got from AAA or from gas stations or whatever. So most of the route planning, you're going to the southern route. I-10 was still around down then. A lot of other highways, some aren't as maintained as they are now, but going a southern route would have been the best route in my mind, especially if one of the times you wanted to stop in New Orleans, all right? I don't know if, in my opinion, I've been through New Orleans a couple times. New Orleans isn't really a drive-through city, but the highway system does allow for that. You can, as you're coming down, you can bypass New Orleans. But this one, in the trip he talks about, he didn't bypass, he went to New Orleans. To me, this is not significant for the solve. To me, this preamble, introduction to the story, is significant for how to get to Arkansas. So goes through New Orleans, continues on to Houston, doesn't really mention any other stops. Then he talks about Maine, he talks about Pokemon, and then he gets into the chapter. He does say one of the big hints is circular routes. So meaning he didn't go back and forth through the same way. The way I got to Arkansas was, for a while there, I didn't get to Arkansas. I wanted to get to the Ozarks in my mind, and I was trying to make an excuse for how to get to Ozarks. Because if you go Statesville, it's a little bit higher. Houston's down here. You drive, you get here. If you go back, maybe you go a little bit north. There are a few, there's not really interstates, but there's a few other highways that can allow you to go this way. But to catch the next big interstate, you'd have to go way more north. We're talking Texarkana, like the corner out of Dallas, all right? So in my head, he doesn't mention Dallas at all. So would he go up to Dallas and then go over? Or are you taking from Houston, are you going up to the Ozarks? Because in the story, he says, in the text, he says we go past the Ozarks. So anyways, this is, a lot of people don't like the Arkansas man goes broke. A lot of people are looking in Missouri. A lot of people are looking in Mississippi, Louisiana. For me, the picture and the text of the story doesn't really, the flavor of the story, a lot of people even looking in Texas, doesn't really give other state vibes. I don't know how else to explain it. It just, Arkansas makes sense to me. Why mention the Ozarks if you're not going there? It seems like it's intentionally cruel red herring to say we're going past the Ozarks in the story of your text and then never even mention it again. So this is another interesting thing. Has anyone found the picture? I've had sent to me personally in my DMs 3 images that I would put money on and say they're the image. 2 have been in the Buffalo National River. 1 was out of state, and I can't say the state. But the frog picture you line up with the country. I don't know if you were caught on one of the other videos, Dallas, but the frog picture, the edge, and this is public knowledge, so I can say it. It matches with 2 other pictures. It matches with the Scotty picture in like chapter 1. The edge, the border is the same, and it matches in one of the middle necklaces. There's a gold pendant that matches the exact same border. So the current thought for that, early on, people said it matched with Oregon, the Oregon coast. They said that was the frog picture, was in Oregon. Which, why would Oregon be in a Pokemon chapter that is in the South? I don't know. My current theory on this, and this video is going a little bit long, but so I'll say this and I'll wrap it up because I want to do a separate video on this later. But my current theory on a lot of the images in here are they're AI. A lot of the templates are AI. A lot of the borders are AI. AI is not great at creating. AI is good at taking stuff that's already out there and using it. Does the coin match anything in Arkansas? Yeah, that's I found a few things for the coin. I'm keeping it close to the vest for now because if I'm right, it's the actual location of the box, and I don't want to give that away. I'd rather try to go get it myself. But if it doesn't, I'll put out what I think the coin means. And again, the coin for Arkansas is not as I'm getting out. Anyways, I lost track already. AI. Okay. So my deal with this is that I tried to look. And this was a group collaboration one night. Did JCB hire an artist? Did he use any artists? Well, he credits whoever he uses, which is good because if he credits people that he uses, that means we can deduct that if he doesn't credit anyone, he didn't use anyone. So he credits Seth Gold. Seth Gold made the box, right? He credits Angie and Lauren, who were creators of the rubies. He credits his 5 researchers. All right, so that takes out those people because he credits them and says what they did. So everything else you can assume that he did on his own. He does tell us he did the map, right? Don't judge it too harshly. He did the AT map. All right, so I think that he used AI and he used it for a lot of his artwork. I think, in my opinion, this is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. For me, I'm not going to focus on pictures or images unless he tells me to. So for the Pokemon image, he tells me to, yes. So for the Appalachian Trail, he tells us to look at the map, yes. All other pictures and all other images, whether they're photographs or whether they're, in my mind, AI, other than for flavor and for themes, because he mentions themes in his last Inside Edition interview, I think it was, pick up the theme for the chapter theme. I'm not really deep analyzing any of the images because to me they're AI and it's just a waste of brain power. Other people are, and other people are, and I encourage that because if we all did the same thing, then none of us would have a box. So I encourage people to look into that if they are. Just for me, I'm not. That's why I think the borders are templates because they're recycled. Most of the rough edges, you can call it, appear in 2 photos or more. Some are 3. I haven't found a 4 yet. I've not seen a 4, but some are 3. So it's just repetition of the AI, in my opinion. I get that much Pokemon Go, we have much Pokemon Red. Yeah, I haven't, other than the AR, or what he calls ER, which I think is also significant, part of Pokemon Go, and hiding the Mewtwo in the image, I don't really think that there's a lot of significance to the color. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so we're getting long here, 40 minutes, wrapping up. Thanks for everyone who stayed and watched. Really appreciate all the feedback. Again, Google Street View is your friend. Thank you, Mr. Dallas. Hope this video helps. This is, I feel pretty, of all the boxes, this one I feel like the most strongly about. For me, it goes Pokemon box, and then the Vermont box, and then next would be Past and Future, and then next would be the Fen box, which, if everything goes well, if nobody doesn't feed me any more information, I'm going to try to work on the Fen box next, because I haven't done that in like a week or two. And I don't know, I just want to circle back to it. All right, so thanks everybody. Have a good day. Bye.